Hello, my friends. This is Jay, and this is Jay's Knit and Purl Jam. And I don't know, I just got this. One of my viewers gave me this great suggestion, and then when I looked through my stash, I didn't realize I had so much. She said, Jay, why don't you demonstrate how you make those little scarves you wear? And I thought, well, okay, they're not really, what you call fancy or really high end. In fact, they are a throwback to the 90s. We had this thing we call tube scarves. I think they've changed the name to more infinity. Infinity scarves now. But they were just plain tube scarves to us. And all you needed was a little piece of fabric. Maybe you had some fabric left over from a dress, so you made a little scarf. Back in the day, we couldn't waste a lot of stuff. If you had at least half a yard, you could make a cute scarf to match. And that's exactly what you see here. Just a lot of pieces that I have bought when I see things on sale, or I'm at Joann's and I have a coupon, 20% off or whatever on a small cut of fabric. So I thought, well, all right, that's what I'll do. I'll just do a throwback project to the 90s, and we, instead of calling them infinitive scarves, we would just call them tube scarves. Another one of Jay's quick and easy accents, just for you. Woo, isn't this pretty? So let me get all set up, and we'll just kind of walk you step by step. But isn't some of this fabric beautiful? Isn't that pretty? Look. Some of this I got right as Hancock was, when they were down to nothing. I got a few little pieces here and there. Of course, a lot of it comes from Joann's. Look at this. Isn't that pretty? Ooh, pow, look at that. That's a splash of color. So, all right, so let me clear it up, and then we'll talk about it, and I'll tell you exactly what you need. How about that? Okay, this project's so simple. I really didn't, even though we're going to be sewing and cutting just a little bit, I didn't need to I started to take out my quilter mat, and I started to get my rotary cutter, and I'm thinking, no, you don't really need any of those things. You just need these few little basic things, because most of it is just, like I say, pretty much done by hand. Even if you don't have a sewing machine, you can hand stitch this if you really wanted to. All right, first of all, you're going to need, the first thing you're going to need, of course, is your fabric. So you pick out some fabric from Joann's or your fabric store or whatever. Some people might like cotton or other fabric blends. I usually go with the nylon, the silky like, the rayon, just anything that I see that I think would be really pretty. Like I say, they're called infinity scarves now, but back in the day, it's a throwback. They were just tube scarves. And look at that. Now, do you see that this has some silk thread running through, some metallic like threads woven through? Okay, these are woven type fabrics, so you're going to have to be sure to check your sewing machine needle. And I remember my friend Diane sent me this when she sent me some scraps of fabric from her stash. She went ahead and sent me some US number 9s, or any needle size that's lightweight that will fit your sewing machine. She just sent me the universal needle, which is fine, just inexpensive. But they are for lightweight and woven fabrics. And if you're not sure, just ask someone, once you pick out your fabric, just ask someone in the fabric department, look at this and tell me what sewing machine needles do I need to pick up. And just tell them what you're going to make. And, I'm sure they'll be able to help you. But anyway, you do need the correct needle. Because before I got this, sometimes I just sewed what was on the machine because I didn't feel like getting up hunting for my needles. And it would pull and stretch the fabric, and then it would pucker. So it pays to go ahead and get the right sewing machine needle. And you'll have it, as you make more. Like I said, they're going to become habit forming. Okay, so the right sewing machine needle with your particular fabrics that you pick out. You know, and like I said, I enjoy more of these woven type fabrics, or you know, these rayons and silky like fabrics. So I got the right size needle here. Next thing you're gonna need are some just some nice. I use ball head pins, straight pins, just some kind of straight pin, just to kind of hold things together. Okay. And, of course, a good pair of fabric scissors that your kids or somebody that they know never to touch. Never to touch. So, I keep them hidden in a safe place. I have the original box. I have the original blade cover. Just in case I ever went somewhere, you know, when I was back in the day. Look, I signed my name, and it's dated 1991. Uh-huh. Look, how pretty. Okay, so, but you do need a good pair of scissors. It's not that much cutting, but you don't want to have to spend time trying to, you know, keep snagging your fabric. And that's it. Oh, and you're going to need, now, I have an ironing pad where when I do a little quilting, or I have the small little pint-sized ironing board in the closet. But this is so simple, I didn't feel like pulling out any of that, people. If you got an old beach towel, that's all you need. So I got an old beach towel here that I put down, and you will need an iron. I have a little, of course I have my everyday iron, but I also keep me a little iron I bought years ago, just back here in my craft area. It's a little steam iron. This is a Proctor Silex. This is a Proctor Silex. I don't know why I was way over there when the camera's right here. But anyway, and I bought it for a little nothing, I think at Brand Smart or somewhere. But anyway, you're going to need an iron. And turn your iron on. Now this is hot. So this is not for children to be around or be trying to learn how to sew, because we have this hot iron and stuff. Okay, so now that's hot and you can hear the steam. So I'll sit it over here and hope I don't touch, because I scar easily. Maybe when I get through, I'll tell you how I got this scar. No, it's not a birthmark, but I'll tell you how I got it. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, now, once you set up and you decide to do this, you know, I wouldn't run out and get one little piece of fabric. I would just wait and just start buying up little pieces when I see it. I only get a half yard. That's all I need. You know, some people do large scars. I saw one lady, you know, was doing something really large. I just get a half of a yard cut off the boat and just put it in the stash until I'm ready to do it. Because this part I would just do all at one time as much as possible. And then that way you can kind of assembly line and sew. You know, they'll be like, you know, you'll have them all pent. You'll be ready to sew. You can iron them. You can flip them. You can do your hand stitching whenever you feel like. So the first thing you want to do is, of course, bring your fabric. And like I say, if you just use an old beach towel, you can simply lay this fabric out. And you just want to iron. You just kind of want to just, because you know, and I know, sometimes when they cut this fabric off the boats, man, when you get home, it's amazing how the fabric is cut. Oops, I hit the camera with that, sorry. It's amazing how the fabric is cut. But you see, I'm just kind of ironing some of the creases out. And you can do that. Now, when I'm doing it, and I'm doing a lot of them, I just do it at my big ironing board. I just assembly line them, like I say, and I might feel like doing maybe 5 or 6 or 4 or 5, you know. And then you just iron it. I hope I'm on camera. I hope. Okay. And that's, now I'm going to turn this, just so I won't burn myself and get another scar. Okay, now I'm going to turn that and set it over here out of the way. So now, as you can see, I have it. Now, you'll have to look real close. Now, if you were a real seamstress and this was some kind of big something you'd have to do, you'd cut off the salvage edge. That's when I was going to get out my rotary cutter and my rotary mat. But you don't have to do all that just for this. You can. But you can really look at the salvage and tell which is the right side and which is the wrong. So now here's the right side of this fabric. Does that make sense so far? Okay. So now I'm going to take the other salvage edge this edge here and just bring them together. Just like this. And this towel really works well because it kind of holds things in place for you. If you just put it on your counter, it's going to slide everywhere if you're using this type of fabric. See that? I'm not measuring. I didn't do any. You don't have to do any of that. They're so simple. Like I say, it's just a throwback. Only a name change. Somebody came up with a new name. So I just kind of smooth it out with my hand. You really don't want to iron it because then you'd put a crease. So now what I've done is just taken the right side facing the right side. Now, the wrong side is up, facing up. I smooth it out with my hands. And just because it just makes it easier to work with, I will come over here and leave about 1 inch or so from the edge. And I will just run some straight pins along the edge. We're going to sew on this side. So I leave a nice, at least a good inch. So you don't even have to move your pins when you're sewing. And instead of going this direction, I'm just going this direction just so I don't have to sew. I don't have to take loose my pins or move them. And you just slide it up. And you're going to do all of this. And see, doesn't that make sense that if you just wait and get several pieces, then you can assembly line them. And you'll do all the pinning maybe one night. You might iron and pin. Like 4 or 5. So, gee, I wasn't that ambitious. I just wanted to do a scarf. Well, if you're going to do one, you may as well get enough fabric to do, you know, a couple extra. Look, they always make nice little gifts, too. Especially after you maybe knit someone something. You can always throw in a little scarf. And like I say, I like the woven type fabrics. I like these. But you can pick anything from knit. Now, see, we're not concerned with how it was cut because we're going to sew. And then we will trim the edge after we sew. And if you notice, I didn't even measure to see how wide. The scarf is going to be however wide this fabric will fold and look nice. And remember I said I always get a 1/2 yard. So now as I come near the bottom, just smooth it out with your hands. Place some pins lengthwise there so that instead of this direction. Now I'm going to come to the bottom and see if I'm on camera and pull it down. Now I'm going to just smooth out this bottom edge here. All that will be covered and hidden. Let's see, can I just smooth it with your hands. Oops, Jay, stop hitting the camera. Okay. And here we go. Let me look on this side. Boy, that's a bad cut. You see how bad? And it is hard for them to keep this kind of fabric because it moves all over the cutting table. And this is why I put the if you put a beach towel down, you won't have so much of a problem of it moving. You know, we could take time and square it all off, but then you can just roll it like this. As your assembly line, you can say, okay, this one's ready for sewing. So then you'd have this one, you'd move this one to the ready to sew pile. And then you'd move to the next one. So then you'd get one, like I said, and if I had ironed it, all of them, I'm going to just pretend like I had already got this one ironed. You'd start with this one the same way. Doesn't this make more sense? Okay, so I'm just going to match up those two salvage edges right there. Lay it on the beach towel. I've got my ready to sew. I've started my stack over here, ready to sew. And now I've got right sides facing the right side. You can see the difference right there. Right side, right side. And then I do this, smooth it out with my hands. The towel will hold it and keep it from sliding around. If I was just on the counter or on my cutting mat, it would be sliding around. Now, boy, they really cut this one awful. This one's, sometimes the cut is so bad, I have had to straighten things out. Sometimes when I would get home, you know, since it's only half a yard, sometimes they're just real careless when they cut. They figure, well, half a yard. But at least I paid my money for half a yard. So this one's really kind of off, but okay. So now I would pin this one. Doing the same thing, be sure to leave. You can see how hard it is to get the pins in this fabric already. And this is why you need the right sewing machine needle. Because it is hard to even put the pins in. Okay. Alright, let me pin this one because it's really cut bad. And then we'll talk about, I'll get the machine out. We'll start our sewing. And before you know it, we'll be done. Okay, but at least you will have something at the end. Yay! Alright. Okay, so I've made my little stack of ready to sew. So now after I look at it, before I actually bring out my machine, I take one good look, another look at it, and just see if I've got enough room. And this is when I decide if I want to take off the salvage. So you can turn, and I had to, you see how bad the cut, because like I say, once you get home, sometimes the cuts are so bad. Especially on this woven fabric. Okay, so I'm going to just eyeball it. Now I could have taken out my cutting mat and rotary cutter, but I've got my gingers, and I'm going to just simply, I'm going to take off this salvage just so that it won't pull, and I'm just going to eyeball. Look how nice they cut. Ooh, look at that. I'm just going to take my time. I'm just eyeballing it, and I'm cutting that salvage off just to kind of help line up a little bit more. And you can see this was a really bad cut there. And if that's going to bother you, you can, but you could just kind of lightly trim that off if you need to. Alright, so now I'm going to turn it on this side. If you take off one side of the salvage, then you probably need to take off the other to make it more uniform. And like I said, once we start to sew, it's going to be like a little assembly line. You can see that? Alright, now there's the salvage. I've got my Ginger nice sharp scissors here. And I have protected my blade. They've never gone dull. Just like butter. Okay. So now look. So now this is what we're going to do. We're going to stack them up, ready to sew, assembly line style. There's one. See, I sniffed off that salvage. Okay, so then you can just go ahead and grab another one. Here's this black one. I went ahead and, like I said, once you start pinning, if you have a big supply of pins, you can pin quite a few. You know, one night you can pin, one night you can sew. Let me pull this on camera. Okay, I want to take that off, this salvage off. In fact, I'm going to turn it on the other side. Sometimes you may have to turn it on the opposite side just so you can see how bad the cut is and what you need to take off. So I see that I'm going to take this off so that I don't have to deal with pulling of my fabric by the salvage as we get ready to sew. There's that. Now I'm going to flip it over to the opposite edge. See how bad the cut is on this side. I think I have to flip this one over to see it. Okay, I'm going to take this pin out right quick. Alright, how we're doing? Alright, so take my scissors and just lightly, if you lay the bottom, now usually you can, if I was on this towel, you just slide the bottom edge along, but since we are on a towel, but it still works great. And I'll put my pin back in. And we will continue. So I'll just see how many. I just wanted to let you see that. So now we're getting this assembly line. We've got a stack going. We've done the little simple details. So once we start sewing, you don't have to stop and do one. Then you got to stop. I would have to move my machine. So see if they're already prepped and ready to go. Voila. Back in a minute. Okay, so I've set my machine up. I have a new sewing machine, but I'm just too tired and to go through and learn how to use the thing. It's not a real fancy one. It was just one that was on sale. And I thought, oh, I'll just get this machine, and it's just one of those little singers. This is my old baby lock that I've used for years. Don't sew much anymore because I'm telling you, it took its toll on my back. Years of all night sewing, getting ready for shows. I didn't do quilts for shows. I used them for the displays and things, and giveaway items, coasters and things like that. So, but it's always, something. It's just like riding a bike. Once you do it, you just kind of know. Okay, now before I take out the fabric and start these little pieces of scrap that I cut off, the salvage, I've swapped out the needle for the smaller needle for the woven fabric, because normally I keep a size 14 or something just for cotton and things like that. Like I said, I don't sew that much anymore. Alright, so, but I've swapped out the needle, and so in order to test it before I go to the real fabric and maybe have some puckering or anything like that, I'll simply take these little scraps and run it through the machine just to see how the tension, if I have the correct needle, if it's going to pucker, or if it's just right. And I'll just run it through with these little scraps. Pull it. Beautiful stitching. No puckering or anything. So now I know that, okay, I can start on the real fabric now. Okay, so now here's my piece of fabric that I pinned down the side that I'm going to sew on. And I just got some yarn that will go as close as I could to, see, got this pin on the wrong side, so let me just stick it back over here. Okay, so now let me turn the fabric. And we're going to make one seam down this side that we have already put our pins in. And this is what I'm going to do. To make it easy to have a nice seam, I'm going to, let's see which is the best way. Okay, I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to fold this seam over. I think I'm on the wrong side, sorry. I'm just going to fold this seam over a little bit. Just right here. Just fold it over just a little bit. So that I can sew right. See how I'm just folding it over? We're on the wrong side of the fabric anyway. But I'm going to reinforce this seam by simply folding it over. And then I will sew right on the edge, because I've already tested the fabric out. All I have to do is just fold it over. That's why I left plenty of room. And let's see how it goes. Let's just see. Alright, and of course I will start and lock my stitch in. Then just stay right near the edge, a nice clean edge. And if you put your pins over far enough, you won't have to move them. But some of mine may have been a little close, so I think I'll take that one out. Stay near the edge of where you fold the fabric over. So this is what you will have. And then what we will do is snip that off, and you're going to have a nice protected seam on this scarf. Now before I go any further, let's see if I need to reposition this camera. Hold on just 1 second. Okay, now as you can see, as I start to sew, I'm just folding this raw edge over right as I come up to, and you can take the pin. If you didn't move your pins over enough, just take them as you come, but you're sewing on the edge, and this is what you will have once we get to the end. You're going to have a folded over protective seam that we will simply take off this little excess right there. So it's going to be a really nice seam. I just kind of fold it over. I'm not measuring anything. I'm just staying on the edge. And I thought I had my pins over far enough, but I didn't. So just take them out as you come to them. Just don't stick yourself. There you go. Just here we come up to another one. Now, as I'm sewing, you see I'm pulling a little bit, folding the seam over on itself, sewing right near the edge. Oops, sewing right near the edge of the where I folded it over. Coming up, I'm getting ready to come up a little further. See, I'm just pulling a little bit, and it folds over on itself. Makes a nice, neat, clean, tight seam. Okay, I'm coming up. I'm up to the end. See how I'm folding it over, just like that. As I come all the way up to the end, I may be able to get by this pin here. And then I will get to the end and lock it in place, just like I did at the beginning. Okay. I've got the foot up. Pull out the... Now look at this nice seam. Now what you will do, like I said, I assembly line everything. I'll just go through and do this part on however many scarves that will match the thread that I have in here. You know, you kind of pick a thread. If you have a lot of lights, put the lights together, and then you don't have to switch your thread, and then put all the darks together, you know, the blacks or the grays or something like that. Then you can keep all of those together, and then you don't have to switch every time. So I have some light color thread on here, so I will do all the light. And then I will sit down and slowly, now I'm sitting here doing it at the machine, but I would really have everything moved out of the way. I take my good scissors, or if you have some really smaller scissors. But you see how, now I will clean up this seam. I should have had my little smaller scissors out. These are just too large for me to, I've got some little small ones, but I don't want to get up and have to reset the camera and all that. Okay, but now we're going to take off this little excess. You see what I'm doing here? Just don't cut your seam, you know, don't cut your seam thread, and just go slow. And then you're going to have, look at that nice seam, because this is, remember, this is the wrong side. We still have to flip it to the right side, and look how nice your seam will be. Isn't that nice? And you won't have all that fraying, and you know how sometimes your scarf, you won't have all that, because we're taking care of the seam right now. And that's the reason a half yard works perfect. You get a nice size scarf, but you have room to do all of this prep and clean up things. Okay, now off camera, I'll get my small scissors, since I didn't bring them over here, and clean this seam up. You snip all the way up. See that? And you're going to get this beautiful seam. All right, so like I suggested, if you have light thread in, all the light fabrics together, and you're going to do this part where you're going to sew and roll the seam, and then you're going to snip it right close to the sewing line. And then you can switch out your threads to a darker color and work the dark. But I will see you back as I finish snipping this off, and then we will turn our tube to the right side. And you know, we're pretty close to being done. Okay, back in a minute. Okay, so now I have my scarf and I have this nice clean seam. You see that? And it's reinforced because we folded the seam over on itself and sewed right here on the edge. See that? So now, all right, we still have just a little bit more sewing to do on the machine. So now what you're going to do is to take your scarf, and let me make sure I'm on camera as I demonstrate this. Okay, yeah, I'm good to go. All right, take your scarf and go to the back, go to the seam, okay? Reach your hand into your tube. This is a tube now, see here? Here's my arm going through. Oh, that's kind of pretty like that. But we need to turn it to the right side. Okay, so what we're going to do is go to the seam. Right here, I got my arm in the tube. See that? My arm is in the tube. I go to the seam. I just grab the seam and pull the seam through the tube till I'm even with the seam on this end. See? I just pull the seam through. And you can fit it so that they are, you know, one's going this way, one going that way, that's fine. Or they can go the same way. Whichever is, I probably put mine the same way. I'm going to put mine going the same way since we folded that seam over. It's best that they go the same way, but open it up and just match it up the best you can. Okay, oh, I've got a nice match right there, okay? And of course, then you're going to pin it. And I'm going to move my pin down a little bit so I don't have to take them out. I'm going to move it down here. See there? I'm just pinning my seam. Now, since this is so small, you can pin it several other places, but I'm going to just stretch it out from this end and go over here to this side. Now, if it was a really long scarf, you know, wide scarf, then you'd have to pin, you know, go a little bit, pin it, and you can almost see where the you know, where the folded edge was over here. But I'm going to line it up, stretch it out, see how it looks, like this. And then I'll pin it, and then I'll go back and maybe just check it, put some other pins in here. But move your pins down so that you have plenty of room to sew. Keep your pins from being on the actual edge. See, I moved it down. Now I'm going to go through and just kind of stretch it out just to see if I need another pin, or if it's not right, I can add another pin here. See, right there. Okay, now I'm going to kind of spin it around. Now see, I need to put a pin here, and then I need to kind of pull it to get any puckers out. Let me just get my pin, pin it here. Now right here I'm going to have to move this pin just a little bit as I kind of fit the fabric, each piece to the other. Alright, now I'm ready to sew. And I like to, most people leave the seam, but I like to start beyond the seam. Here's the seam right here. I start about, say, an inch and a half or so before I get to the seam. I just put my presser foot down about an inch and a half before I'm to come to this seam. You see that? Now I'm going to slowly and just move get my foot here. All right, I'm going to start and lock it in. And then I'm going to sew all the way around. Now, when I get to the seam, make sure you lift your foot up to make sure that the seam is not bunched up, that it lays flat. And as I go around, you will have to put a little tension on each piece of fabric so it won't pucker. I'm just pulling a little bit just to put a little tension as I go around. My pins are down far enough that I'm not having to. And right here, like it might want to pucker, but I'm going to keep going. Put a little tension, pull the fabric, and then I see where I started. So I leave, I don't know, about 2 inches. Lock that. Lift the foot. Pull the scarf out. Cut off your threads. And you take your pins out. Okay. Now, this one I did not fold over. So now I'm going to go into the space I left, the 2 inches I left, and I'm going to go in and we're going to pull our scarf through. It's going to take a little work, but that's one reason I like this little silky tight fabric, and you know, cotton, boy, you have a hard time trying to get it to come through. But this little silky rayon synthetic fabric, it just wants to spill out anyway. Almost looks like a flower, doesn't it? Look how it just wants to pop out. It's like, I don't want to stay in there. I don't want to stay in there. Okay. Look at my nice seams. Here is my scarf. Of course, now, you will turn your scarf. Now, you have to, you see the little opening. You will take a regular needle and thread, and matching thread, and you will simply hand stitch up that opening, and you can call that your back. You can just put that at the back of the neck. So your seam goes down the scarf. The seam is that we sewed is like the bottom of the scarf. Here's the seam. Here's the back of the neck that you're going to sew up this little opening right here. You see that? You'll just do some little whip stitches, and then, of course, that's the back of the neck. Now you can turn the scarf, and look at this scarf. Look at that. Maybe I'll lay it over the sewing machine so you can kind of see it. Let's see if I'm on camera. Look at that. What do you think of that? Look how pretty that is. See? You have what we called a tube scarf is now an infinitive scarf. Now, if you're really small and like it tight, I guess you could wrap it twice. I don't think these are long enough. But there's a nice back seam. The side that we're going to whip stitch is going to be worn next to the neck. This is the back seam, and here's the bottom seam that goes at the bottom of the scarf. Voila! Now, who said they can't make a scarf? Now, think how pretty this will look. If you knit someone something, a little top or a little, and then you find a piece of fabric, or for yourself. Just like I wear it for myself. What do you think of that? Well, let's see. I only have about 15 or 20 more to go. Here's my tube. Here's my... And then if you want to wear it and it's real long in front, and maybe you need to maybe not have it so long, you can always put a pin or a brooch and you can tie it. You know how you can just kind of put it, you can put a pin on it. But there's lots of ways to wear it. Out of a half yard of fabric, a few little steps, and like I say, if you're going to make them, put all the light colors together, put all the dark colors together. That way you can assembly line all the steps that I've walked you through. And, well, J's, this is another quick and easy accent. J's, a.k.a. tube scarf. Oh. To make, to wear, to share. Just for you. Well, I hope you like this little sewing demo. I'm like, man, Jay, I got through it. So until we see each other again, I hope you enjoy it. And of course, while you're working on this, I will be working on the next tutorial. And it's a knit one. And I hope you like it. So, this is Jay. Till we see you in the next tutorial. See ya! and happy sewing. Beautiful scarf. I can't wait to get. Oh, you know what? I know I'm supposed to end the video, but you know what? I just saw some yarn over at Joann's. I'll go get it maybe this week or something. It's by Deborah Norville. I'm hoping it looks like one of these colors. It's a melon color. And they had it. I didn't have enough coupons because I'm going to need at least 4 skeins to make a sweater or top that I can wear this scarf with. Okay. Now I'll say it again. See ya.